Well, thanks for joining me. You were at the club from 2002 until 2008. You made something like 67 appearances. When you were in the club, you were still studying geography at Nottingham Trent Uni. How did you find playing and studying at the same time?
Well, I think when I started, I'd been playing at Leicester Tigers in the under 21s there, and had been involved with Wales Sevens and Wales students. So I think after sort of moving into my third year, when I was looking at where to go, I had a few approaches from some National One clubs, so Championship at the time. But having met Simon Beetham and seen a bit about the club, I thought, this is going to be a really good fit. And I think at the time it was very, there hadn't been a move particularly into the professional era, and certainly for that first year there. Although I picked up a shoulder injury pretty early on, but I think we struggled that first year and almost got relegated. But I think I was able to balance doing my training at university, and I had a lot of free time then. But I think it was only later on, once I moved back to Wales briefly. I still not back playing because of that shoulder injury, but once I was back, I sort of moved on to this plan to go full time. I think the realization was that I needed to be looking at plan B, and so I enrolled on a postgrad real estate course from Reading, which was a correspondence course, so you were sort of able to work in the sector as well as doing your study. And although the company I was working for in Bridgend was pretty small, they weren't able to then cater for not only the university course but also looking to get chartered. So I got back in touch with Simon, had a bit of a chat with him, and I think before I knew it, I met with Matthew Hanna and Robert Hartley at Innes England, who are the leading commercial property consultants in the East Midlands, and they had they agreed to take me on. So before I knew it, I was sponsored for my university course. I was being trained up to get chartered, and then I was given great flexibility, both from the rugby club and from the company, to play the rugby and try and balance everything. But like I say, I think it was very early days in terms of professionalism at Nottingham, and I think that first year up was a real eye opener for us. So there was there was quite a lot to do in terms of stepping on from. Well, we managed to stay up that first year, but I think things really moved on in the years following that. But like I say, I think it's. Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
I think having a company that's able to support you and the rugby club to get that balance right was really a pretty privileged position to be able to get that.
Was that injury a key factor into you looking at a plan B, so looking at getting into work? So if you'd not sustained that, would you have just kept on in the mentality of, I'm just going to play rugby?
Yeah, definitely. I think certainly having had that exposure at Leicester Tigers, and although I wasn't given a first team contract there, which was pretty competitive at the time, I'd certainly got that hunger for the professionalism of it, and thought that actually if I'm moving from doing my own bit of training, you were given a bit of a training program at Tigers, but it was very much on your own to do that. I thought if I could get that full-time contract and be able to really focus on it without the study, that would be the way I wanted to go. And looking further ahead, I just didn't do that. So in a way, it was fate that plan B came along, and I looked at what was I going to get from my geography career, and I didn't feel it was quite there. And I had a bit of time to think about moving into the real estate sector, and that just turned out to be a real winner, really.
So that obviously that season you rejoined the club that you spoke about, and you work for the leading commercial property consultant, and you was playing rugby as well. So I guess some to studying and playing rugby, but obviously this time working playing rugby. How did you find that balance?
It was. I think I was still very much of the keen to continue with the rugby and continue playing at the highest level I could. And I think a lot of the guys, particularly in that sort of second season, once there was a big step on in professionalism, but that there were some guys training early in the morning. There were those that were perhaps more on a full-time basis that were training through the day, and then there were those of us that were we called ourselves the Nottingham Knights, because we were the training group coming in the evening and trying to catch up with all the training that the guys had done during the day in terms of weights and fitness. And then you were still built in with the team training sessions on Tuesday and Thursdays. You just got into a good routine with it, and that was it. It really was surveying and rugby, but that was good, and certainly for that season we got promoted. Life was pretty good with all the sponsorship and being taken care of, but also pretty much winning every game on the weekend. Having had a completely fresh squad coming in, we'd really embraced with getting some really decent students in. For instance, Mark Easter went on to play for Saints and Sales. So, it was great. It was really good. And a lot of those guys then stayed on from that promotion year for the next 4 or 5, 6 years. So, it was good.
So obviously, around that time, the club was, as you say, moving to more of a professional model. Did that make you rethink things in terms of, actually, I don't need this plan B, I could go back full-time, or was you already in that mindset of, no, I like the working and playing rugby side of things?
Yeah, that's I had to make that decision, because I remember I had a meeting with Glenn Delaney, and he said that, look, this was 2006, and he said, look, we're really wanting to get more of the guys on board on a more of a full-time basis, and that there's an opportunity for you, if you did want to do that, to join in and get involved. But so 2006, I think, coming into that season, 06, 07, I'd finished my university course, but I was looking to get chartered and sit at the interview with the RICS, and I'd outlined that for April time. So I decided, actually, I'm going to stick with that. So April 07 was still my plan to sit my interview to try and get chartered with the RICS. And so I had that conversation with Glenn and said, look, this is what I want to do. So he said that that's absolutely fine. And we actually tailored it in with my contract that year that I'd get a sort of a study break for, I think it might have been 6 to 8 weeks of just getting away from the club, really knuckling down, because it's quite a big thing to try and get through. And I wanted just to deliver it and get through it first time. So it worked pretty well there. And I felt I was just about keeping pace with all the other guys to be able to get back playing. I think that I was a bit annoyed that after the interview, I'd had a nice rest. I was feeling really good, really refreshed to get back into it. A lot of the other guys were coming out. It was coming towards the end of the season, and they were all absolutely shattered. And then I think it was just pretty unfortunate, but I had a bit of a freak a fracture dislocation in one of the sort of comeback games. So that knocked it on the head completely. So I didn't get as much rugby as I wanted that season. But like I said, I did have that decision to make, and but I thought, right, I'm going to stick with it. I want to look at. I think, having worked for a period of time, I knew that I'd start to get it into my head that actually the rugby career could be quite short. And that you do need to think about it, and I was becoming more and more involved with the surveying and looking at the career longer term.
Was that always in the back of your mind when there was in the transition from part-time to full-time, that okay, me and a couple of the other lads are still part-time, are we going to be able to keep paying full-time?
I think I did find it, like I said, as I mentioned before, to really try and focus and get in and do your training. I think I was really lucky with with the way the professionalism had built up at the club, and Joe Brunn coming in as I think he was the first full-time employee at the club. He's the strength and conditioning coach. I mean, he came in and completely revolutionised things. And that was the big change. And to get guys like that, also in the mindset that they've got a full-time squad to look after, but there's also these other guys that are in the squad as well who've made the decision to try and do the two. that he was taking up. He'd been working long hours from the guys still working that were coming in doing the morning session. He'd taken the guys through the day, but he was still there, completely committed to help support us through our sessions, which they could easily be 2-3 hours long after work. And I won't lie, I was pretty shattered sometimes, but he'd also take that on board. And if that was the case, he'd say, well, that's fine. You need to go away, get some rest, and come back and be ready to go. But it wasn't easy, and I think the rest of the guys in the squad were pretty good about it as well. So they knew that was a decision that I wanted to take, and I was moving forward with. And but we were all there on a Saturday going for the same aim.
And then in 2008, obviously you made the difficult decision to time on your playing career. Did it make it a little bit easier knowing that you had a plan B or a fallback plan, and that you'd been in work for so long?
Yeah, hugely. It was, as you mentioned, so for medical reasons, the summer of 2008, I was told that I need to call it a day for the rugby. So it was a bit of a shock, and I think I was about 24, 25 at the time. So I'd still planned, and actually I'd got my, I was chartered. I'd got that all out of the way, I thought, well, I perhaps then could have looked at joining the bigger full-time squad, but I certainly wanted to continue playing, and so it was a bit of a bolt out of the blue. But because I'd already got that established, how long I'd been there, so that would have been 5 years in this England, 4 or 5 years in with them. I'd got chartered, so my career was already moving, already progressing. So it was a pretty seamless transition from not playing, from playing into not playing. So I think I was really lucky in that respect. And then there was a really good touch rugby league, so I was able to get a bit of a fix of rugby, albeit not getting smacked about quite so much.
And fast forward to today, you're a commercial property surveyor for Sainsbury's. How's that going?
Yeah, really well. Yeah, so I'm an asset manager for them. I moved on from Innes England consultancy into Holland and Barrett, and I worked in-house for them, looking after a lot of their shops, and then moved on to Sainsbury's, who'd relocated out of London up to Coventry, and so I look after about 200 of their supermarkets. So that's been great, and again a great company. Although they're based in Coventry, it's pretty flexible in terms of work, and I think more and more big businesses going that way now. And I think post COVID-19, it's only going to be more prevalent with bigger business. You don't necessarily have to be in London, for example, or Birmingham. You can be more flexible on where you are, and look at the bigger picture as to your work life and where you want to be. And I, like several of the other players, have certainly made Nottingham home, and married, living, got a house here with 2 boys. I'm now coaching at the Westbridge Rugby Club, help out with the cricket where I can, and it's all really good. I'm absolutely loving it.
What is it about Nottingham that's kept you there then?
I think it's a balance of being a big enough place that it's got pretty much everything you want on offer, but yet small enough that you get a real sense of place and community, and you don't feel lost in it whatsoever. And my wife's from Scotland, my family down in Wales, also location-wise, it's a pretty good fit to be able to get to both of them. So it just ticks all the boxes. And talking about going back to the business side of things again, if you look just in retail, and retail's in a pretty scary place at the moment, but you've got Boots, their head office here, you've got Sports Direct, you've got Dunelm, you've got Vision Express. There's a lot of big retailers here, not to mention lots of other sectors, like I think Pendragon and one of the biggest car leasing company, and huge business here.